Lyriel loved the twilight on Zelvera. The sky would turn a shimmering violet, and the twin moons would cast soft light over the green meadows. It was her favorite time to sit outside her home, a sleek dome of crystalline material, and lose herself in the stories her grandmother told. Long ago, her grandmother would begin, her voice low and mysterious. There was a race called humans. They were warriors, strong, fierce, and clever. They fought for what was right, protecting the weak and defeating the cruel. But one day, they vanished, leaving only their tails behind. Lyriel always listened with wide eyes, imagining the human warriors. In her mind, they wore shining armor and wielded weapons of light. They stood tall and unyielding, their presence alone enough to make the cruelest enemies tremble. "Why did they leave, grandmother?" Lyriel would ask every time. "Who knows?" her grandmother would say, shrugging. "Maybe they grew tired of fighting. Maybe they found a place where they could rest forever. Some say they will return if the galaxy needs them again." The tales were fascinating but felt like fairy tales. After all, no one in Zelvera believed humans were real. The Zorain people were peaceful and curious by nature. They excelled in science, art, and philosophy, but had no history of war. The very idea of warriors seemed like something from an old myth. But Lyriel wasn't like everyone else. She believed the stories were true. There was something in the way her grandmother spoke, a spark of certainty that made her heart race. At school, her friends often teased her for her fascination with humans. "Human warriors? Really, Lyriel?" Her friend Raylan laughed one day. "You know those stories are just to entertain children." "What if they're not?" Lyriel argued. "What if they're out there somewhere, watching us, waiting for the right moment to come back?" Her classmates rolled their eyes and changed the subject. But Lyriel never stopped wondering. She would sit under the twin moons, gazing at the stars, imagining a time when humans walked among them. Then everything changed. One quiet morning, the skies above Zelvera darkened. Massive ships appeared out of nowhere, their hulking forms casting long shadows over the land. The Tarkath had come. Known throughout the galaxy for their brutal conquests, the Tarkath enslaved entire worlds with their advanced weaponry and ruthless tactics. Panic spread like wildfire. The Zorain's peaceful society had no defenses against such a force. Within days, their cities were under Tarkath control. Families were forced into hiding, their once beautiful world now a place of fear. In the midst of the chaos, Lyriel heard a group of scientists talking. They spoke of a forgotten signal, a distress beacon from ancient times. "It's human technology," one of them whispered. Lyriel's heart leaped. Could the humans from her grandmother's stories be real? And if they were, would they answer the call? For the first time in her life, she dared to hope. The once vibrant cities of Zelvera were now silent, their crystalline towers dimmed under the oppressive shadow of the Tarkath. Lyriel crouched in the dark corner of an underground shelter, her heart pounding in her chest. The Tarkath's heavy footsteps echoed above, each sound a reminder of the danger they all faced. Zelvera had never known violence before. The Zorain were thinkers, creators, and dreamers. They had built a society focused on harmony and progress, thriving on their advanced technology and shared wisdom. But none of that had prepared them for this. The Tarkath had come like a storm, their ships descending from the heavens without warning. Their towering forms, covered in thick armor, seemed unstoppable. Their weapons emitted beams of searing energy that reduced entire buildings to rubble in seconds. The Zorain's peaceful attempts to communicate were ignored. Their pleas for negotiation were met with cold indifference. Lyriel's father, a scientist, had tried to reason with the Tarkath when they arrived. "We have nothing you need," he had told them. "We are no threat to you." But the Tarkath didn't care. They enslaved planets to strip them of resources and force the population into labor. Zelvera was just another conquest to them, a prize to be claimed. Now, Lyriel's family and dozens of others were hiding in makeshift shelters deep below the surface, hoping to avoid detection. Food and water were scarce, and fear hung thick in the air. The Zorain were not used to living like this. Lyriel clutched her grandmother's hand tightly. She tried to stay brave, but the hopelessness around her was suffocating. "We can't stay like this forever," one of the elders whispered in the shelter. "What choice do we have?" Another replied, "The Tarkath are too powerful. Our technology is useless against them." "We sent the signal," one of the scientists reminded them. "It's human technology. If the stories are true, maybe. Humans are just a myth," someone muttered. Lyriel felt a flicker of anger. "They're not a myth," she said, her voice shaking. "We have to believe in them. If anyone can help us, it's the humans." Her words were met with silence. Most of the Zorain had long stopped believing in fairy tales, but Lyriel refused to give up. Days turned into weeks, and the tension grew. The Tarkath were relentless, rounding up Zorain and forcing them to work in the mines. Every day, Lyriel prayed the signal would reach someone. Anyone who could help. Then, one night, it happened. A loud, strange sound echoed through the shelter, followed by a vibration that shook the walls. Lyriel's heart raced. "What's happening?" someone cried. Rushing to the surface, they looked up and saw the sky alive with fire and light. Ships unlike anything they had ever seen streaked through the atmosphere. Sleek, black, and bristling with weapons, they were terrifying and magnificent. The humans had come, and they were nothing like the Zorain had imagined. The sky over Zelvera blazed with streaks of light as the unknown ships descended. Lyriel stood frozen, her eyes locked on the scene above. The dark, sleek ships moved with precision, their engines emitting a low hum that seemed to vibrate in her chest. They were nothing like the bulky, jagged ships of the Tarkath. "Are they humans?" Lyriel whispered, her voice trembling with both fear and hope. Her grandmother, standing beside her, squeezed her hand. "If the stories are true, child, then perhaps." The shelter's entrance was crowded with Zorain, all staring upward in awe and confusion. Whispers spread through the crowd like wildfire. "Who are they? Are they here to help, or are they another threat?" They answered the signal. It must be them. The first of the ships landed in the clearing near the ruined city center. The ground shook slightly as its landing gear extended, and a ramp descended with a soft hiss. Lyriel held her breath, her heart pounding in anticipation. A figure appeared at the top of the ramp, and the crowd gasped. The being was tall and broad-shouldered, encased in armor that gleamed like polished obsidian. Its helmet, smooth and featureless, gave it a mysterious, almost otherworldly presence. Behind it, more figures emerged, similarly armored and carrying weapons that looked both elegant and deadly. The leader stepped forward, its movements deliberate and controlled. A voice echoed from the helmet, amplified and clear, but with a tone that was surprisingly calm and reassuring. "We are humans," it said. "We received your distress signal. We are here to help." The Zorain around Lyriel murmured in disbelief. Could it really be true? Humans, the mythical warriors of old, had come to their aid. Lyriel felt her knees weaken. "They're real," she whispered to herself, tears welling in her eyes. The Zorain elders approached cautiously, their fragile frames dwarfed by the imposing humans. One of the elders, a tall Zorain with silver markings on his skin, bowed slightly. "You have our gratitude. We are the people of Zelvera. We are not used to violence. The Tarkath have taken our world. We need your help." The leader of the humans, who introduced himself as Commander Marcus Kane, nodded. "We know of the Tarkath. They are ruthless, but they are not invincible. With our help, you will reclaim your world." For the first time in weeks, a spark of hope lit the Zorain's eyes. Lyriel, standing near the edge of the crowd, couldn't tear her gaze away from the humans. They were everything the stories had said, and more: strong, confident, and determined. As the humans began discussing tactics with the elders, Lyriel stepped forward, unable to contain her curiosity. "Commander Kane," she said, her voice timid but steady, "are you really the warriors from the stories?" Kane turned to her, his helmet tilting slightly as if studying her. Then he removed it, revealing a face lined with experience but softened by a small smile. "We're not myths, young one," he said, "but we are here to prove those stories right." Lyriel's heart soared. The humans weren't just warriors. They were hope made real. The days that followed were filled with preparations. The humans, led by Commander Marcus Kane, worked quickly to organize the Zorain. They were not just helping. They were teaching, training, and planning. The Zorain, once peaceful and unprepared for conflict, were now learning the basics of defense. Lyriel watched it all from the sidelines, her heart swelling with admiration. She had seen warriors in the stories, but seeing these humans in action, moving with purpose, their every word measured and strong, was something beyond her childhood imagination. These were real heroes. The humans had brought their advanced technology, but it wasn't just the weapons that stood out. It was the way they carried themselves, always alert, always planning. Commander Kane was everywhere, giving orders, rallying his troops, and working alongside the Zorain. He wasn't just a leader, he was a symbol of strength. One morning, Lyriel and her grandmother were helping the Zorain prepare shelters in case of another attack. The Tarkath had not been idle. They had sent scouts to probe the edges of the city, testing the defenses. Lyriel overheard the elders discussing the possibility of a full-scale assault. "If we can't fight them off, we'll be forced into surrender," one elder said. "We are too few, and their forces are vast." Lyriel clenched her fists. She knew they couldn't give up, not with the humans here. She couldn't understand all the plans, but she knew one thing. If the humans said they would help, they would keep their word. The next day, Commander Kane called a meeting with the Zorain leaders. Lyriel snuck into the back of the crowd, eager to listen. The humans had brought a fleet, a powerful one, ready to face the Tarkath. Kane had called it the Ghost Fleet, a name that seemed both eerie and fitting. "We have the element of surprise," Kane said, his voice calm but firm. "The Tarkath expect us to attack with brute force, but we're going to hit them where it hurts. We'll use our speed, our technology, and our knowledge of their weaknesses. This will be a surgical strike." The Zorain leaders were skeptical, but Kane's confidence was undeniable. "What's the plan, Commander?" one elder asked. Kane gestured toward a holographic map of the city and the surrounding area. The Ghost Fleet, made up of sleek, fast ships, would strike in small, coordinated waves, attacking Tarkath supply lines and communication hubs. Their goal wasn't just to destroy. It was to destabilize the Tarkath's entire operation. "The Tarkath thrive on chaos," Kane explained. "We're going to give them a taste of their own medicine. Once we hit them hard enough, they'll start to panic, and that's when we make our final move." Lyriel felt a chill run through her at the thought of the coming battle. But there was also something else. An excitement, a thrill she couldn't deny. The humans had a plan. They were going to take the fight to the Tarkath. They were going to show the invaders what it meant to challenge humanity. As Kane finished briefing the Zorain leaders, he turned to Lyriel. "You're the one who believed in us," he said, his eyes steady. "You've got more courage than most of the adults here." Lyriel blushed, unsure of how to respond. I knew you were real," she said softly. "I knew you could help." Kane smiled and placed a hand on her shoulder. "You're going to see something today, Lyriel. You're going to see the real power of humanity." And as Lyriel looked around, she realized she had already seen it. It was in the humans' determination, their spirit, and their unshakable belief in victory. The humans weren't just here to fight. They were here to win. The moment the plan was set, the tension in Zelvera was palpable. Every Zorain and every human had a role to play. The humans had been preparing for days, making adjustments to their equipment and sharing strategies with the Zorain. Commander Kane's presence was everywhere, always moving, always focused. Lyriel found herself drawn to him, inspired by his calm leadership in the face of such overwhelming danger. On the day of the operation, the sky was eerily still. The Tarkith forces hadn't noticed the human ships yet, still busy managing their occupation of Zelvera. The Zorain, hidden in the city's underground caverns and bunkers, awaited the signal. Lyriel was among them, her heart racing. She couldn't help but feel a strange mixture of fear and excitement. This was the moment. "Are you ready?" a voice called behind her. Lyriel turned and saw Commander Kane standing with a small group of soldiers. His helmet was under his arm, and his face, though stern, carried an air of confidence. "I'm ready," Lyriel said, though her voice trembled. "Good," Kane said, giving her an encouraging nod. "I'll need you to stay out of the way, but keep your eyes open. What you're about to witness will change everything." Lyriel nodded, determined to stay strong. This was not just about fighting. It was about reclaiming everything that had been lost. Up above, the Ghost Fleet silently moved into position. The sleek, dark ships flitted through the sky, invisible to the Tarkith forces. It was almost like a shadow moving across the land. Commander Kane had ordered them to stay hidden until the last possible moment. The signal came, a soft, almost imperceptible blink of light on the horizon. The humans were in position. Ready to engage, Kane's voice crackled through the communication line. The first wave of the attack began. Human fighters shot through the sky at incredible speeds, moving in tight formations, striking the Tarkith's communication towers and supply lines. Lyriel watched in awe as the Tarkith, caught off guard, scrambled to react. Explosions rocked the city as human weapons tore into the invaders' infrastructure, causing confusion and panic among the Tarkith forces. The Zorain watched from their underground hideouts, amazed and frightened by the power of the human ships. They had never seen anything like it. The speed, the precision, and the suddenness of the strikes left the Tarkith disoriented. Lyriel had never seen Commander Kane fight before, but she could feel his presence even from down below. His strategy was flawless. He knew when to strike and when to pull back, keeping the Tarkith off balance. Hours passed, and the humans continued their strikes. Each hit was precise, hitting only the most vulnerable points of the Tarkith's operations. As the attacks wore on, the Tarkith forces began to falter. Panic set in. The invaders, who had once seemed so invincible, were now showing cracks in their armor. Lyriel watched as the humans continued to disrupt the Tarkith's hold on the planet. Their ships darted between the clouds, their weapons lighting up the sky with brilliant flashes of energy. It was like a dance, each movement deliberate, each strike powerful. The humans weren't just fighting, they were taking back Zelvera. As the final wave of the attack came in, Lyriel saw the Ghost Fleet's flagship, a massive, intimidating ship, descend from the sky, its engines roaring as it positioned itself above the city. Commander Kane's ship was at the front, cutting through the air like a blade. "This is it," Kane's voice came through the comms. "The Tarkith are finished." Lyriel's heart raced as she watched the ships move into position, ready for the final strike. The humans were no longer just a hope. They were the embodiment of that hope. And they were about to show Zelvera what true warriors could do. The air on Zelvera was thick with anticipation. For days, the humans had been preparing, gathering their forces, and finalizing their strategy. Now, the moment had come. Commander Kane stood in front of his team, looking at the skies above the city of Zelvera. His eyes were sharp, his expression hard. "We're hitting them where it hurts," Kane said, his voice steady as he addressed the assembled human soldiers. "This is the moment we turn the tide. The Tarkith think they can control us, but they're wrong. Today, we show them what humans are capable of." Lyriel, who had been watching from a distance, felt a rush of excitement course through her. The humans weren't just fighters. They were leaders, innovators, and most importantly, they were determined to protect those who couldn't protect themselves. The humans moved with precision. Ships darted through the sky, launching from the Ghost Fleet. Lyriel's heart pounded as she watched the ships soar, their sleek forms cutting through the air with grace and power. For the first time, she could see the full might of the humans. As the ships entered the atmosphere, Commander Kane's voice came through the comms. "Time to get to work. Zorain, we need you to hold the line. We'll take care of the rest." The Zorain had been trained in the basics of defense, but nothing compared to the skill and experience of the humans. They stood ready, weapons in hand, prepared to do their part. The Tarketh, caught off guard by the sudden assault, scrambled to react. Their warships, large and cumbersome, rumbled in the sky, releasing waves of fire as they attempted to retaliate. But the humans were too fast. They darted in and out of enemy fire, using their agility and superior tactics to stay one step ahead. Lyriel watched in awe as one of the human ships, a sleek, sharp-edged craft, swooped down low, launching a barrage of energy blasts at a Tarkath supply depot. The explosions were deafening, the ground trembling beneath her feet. It was a beautiful sight, but also a terrifying one. She realized this wasn't just a fight for survival. It was a fight to reclaim everything they had lost. The humans' weapons were unlike anything the Zorain had seen before. Their lasers cut through the Tarketh's defenses with ease, and their bombs hit with such precision that entire enemy formations were wiped out in seconds. The Tarketh were powerful, but they lacked the speed and adaptability of the human forces. As the battle raged on, Lyriel's fear turned into something else: admiration. The humans didn't just fight, they fought with purpose, with a relentless determination that no enemy could match. They were a force of nature, and they were here to save Zelvera. Despite their overwhelming strength, the Tarketh fought back viciously. Their warships continued to pour fire into the skies, and their ground forces advanced, seeking to overpower the Zorain. Lyriel could hear the distant sounds of gunfire as the humans and Zorain combined their efforts to push the Tarketh back. But it wasn't enough. The humans knew the Tarketh would fight until their last breath, and they had to be ready for anything. Commander Kane's voice came through once more. "Keep pressing. We won't stop until the Tarketh are gone from this planet. We're here to win." Lyriel's chest swelled with pride. She had always dreamed of human warriors, but she had never imagined seeing them in action like this. They weren't just the heroes of old stories. They were real, and they were winning. The battle raged into the night, with the humans and Zorain fighting side by side. The Tarketh forces, though powerful, were now on the defensive. They hadn't expected the human strength or their skill. They hadn't expected the fury of a people who had been pushed to the brink. The first battle was only the beginning, but for the first time in weeks, Lyriel allowed herself to believe, truly believe, that victory was possible. And it was the humans, the very warriors of legend, who were showing them how to fight for it. As the battle continued, the days seemed to blur into one long stretch of tension. The Tarketh had not given up easily. Every time the humans made progress, the invaders retaliated with even more vicious force. But the humans, led by Commander Kane, were relentless. Lyriel watched as the humans and Zorain worked together to hold their ground. The humans were everywhere, leading the charge, strategizing, and moving with a precision that the Zorain had never seen before. It wasn't just their technology or weapons that made the humans formidable. It was their spirit. The Zorain could see it in their eyes. They fought not for glory, but because they believed in something greater than themselves. Lyriel had spent her life hearing stories of human warriors, but now she understood the real meaning behind those tales. It wasn't about strength alone. It was about courage, sacrifice, and the unshakable belief that no matter how dark the world seemed, there was always a way to fight back. The humans weren't just warriors. They were symbols of hope. Lyriel found herself drawn closer to them. She spent time observing their tactics, learning from the way they interacted with each other. It was clear that their bonds ran deep. They weren't just fighting for themselves. They were fighting for their comrades, for the people they didn't know, and for the world they had sworn to protect. One evening, as the humans prepared for another offensive, Lyriel approached Commander Kane. He was sitting alone, studying a map of the city. The lines on his face were etched with exhaustion, but his eyes remained sharp. "Commander Kane," she said, her voice tentative. He looked up, surprised to see her standing there. "Lyriel, what's on your mind?" "I wanted to ask you, how do you keep going?" She hesitated. "The fighting is relentless. How do you stay strong when it seems like there's no end in sight?" Kane set the map aside and leaned back, his hands resting on the table. For a moment, he didn't speak. Lyriel could see the weight of the battle in his eyes, the years of fighting, the loss, and the victories that had come at great cost. "We keep going because we have no choice," he said at last. "We fight because we have to. For the people who can't fight for themselves, for the worlds that need saving, we don't stop because there's always something worth fighting for." Lyriel's heart swelled as she listened. The humans didn't fight out of rage or vengeance. They fought out of a sense of duty, of responsibility. It was a truth that seemed simple but profound. "What about the people you've lost?" Lyriel asked quietly. Kane's eyes softened. "We remember them. Every victory we win is for them. But we don't let the past stop us. We keep moving forward, because that's how we honor them, by finishing what they started." Lyriel thought about his words for a long time. She had always been taught to focus on the future, to believe that there was always hope. But hearing Kane's words made her realize just how powerful that hope could be. The next day, the humans and Zorin launched another attack against the Tarkath. Lyriel was no longer just an observer. She worked alongside the soldiers, helping to coordinate the defense and supporting the wounded. She had learned from the best. She had learned from the humans. As the battle raged on, Lyriel felt something shift inside her. It wasn't just the knowledge that they were winning. It was the understanding that, no matter the outcome, they were fighting for something bigger than themselves. They were fighting for the future. They were fighting for Zelvera, for the Zorain, and for every world that needed protecting. And with that, Lyriel knew they would never stop. No matter how hard the battle became, they would keep going, because that was what humans did. They kept fighting. They kept hoping. And they never gave up. The battle for Zelvera had reached a critical point. The Tarkath, though weakened by the relentless strikes of the humans, were not ready to surrender. Their forces regrouped, becoming more aggressive, pushing harder against the combined Zorain and human defenses. The first wave of attacks had been successful, but now the Tarkath were changing tactics, and it was clear that this fight would not be won easily. Lyriel watched as the humans coordinated their moves, their eyes sharp with focus. Commander Kane had been on the front lines every day, moving between squads, directing attacks, and ensuring that their position was held. The humans' efficiency was staggering, but even they could feel the pressure mounting. One evening, as the sun dipped below the horizon, the human soldiers gathered for a briefing. Lyriel, standing just outside the command tent, overheard snippets of conversation. The humans were discussing their next move, how they would break the Tarkath's hold once and for all. "We need to hit them where they least expect it," one of the officers was saying. "We've already disrupted their supply lines, but they're strengthening their defenses. The only way to make them crack is to destabilize their command structure." Commander Kane stepped forward, his presence commanding immediate attention. He was tired, but his resolve was unwavering. "I agree. We've been playing defensive for too long. It's time to take the fight to them." He looked at the gathered soldiers and the Zorain leaders who had joined them. "Tomorrow, we launch an all-out strike on their central command. We'll break their chain of command, and the rest of their forces will collapse." Lyriel felt a thrill of excitement mixed with fear. It was a risky move, but it was also their best chance. If they could disrupt the Tarkath's leadership, they might finally bring an end to the invasion. But it wouldn't be easy. The Tarkath were entrenched in their stronghold, and it would take everything they had to break through. As the night wore on, Lyriel couldn't sleep. She paced back and forth in the shelter, her mind racing. The weight of the coming battle pressed down on her. She thought about the Zorain, her people, how they had been caught off guard by the Tarkath's brutality. She thought about the humans who had come to their aid and how they had transformed from myths into real warriors. But she also thought about her role in all of this. She had never imagined she would be part of such a fight, yet here she was, standing on the edge of history. The next morning, the plan was set into motion. The human ships launched from the Ghost Fleet, their engines roaring as they broke through the sky. Lyriel stood at the edge of the battlefield, watching as the forces moved into position. Her heart pounded in her chest as she saw the Tarketh forces readying for the incoming attack. It was a full-scale assault. The humans and the Zoraean worked in unison, moving as one. Lyriel saw them coordinate, human and Zoraean soldiers fighting side by side, a seamless partnership born of necessity and respect. The battle began with an intensity that shook the ground beneath her feet. As the humans advanced on the Tarketh stronghold, the air filled with the sounds of explosions, laser fire, and the roar of engines. The Tarketh fought back fiercely, but the humans were unstoppable. Their tactics were swift, their strikes precise, and their will unyielding. In the chaos, Lyriel found herself in the thick of it. She wasn't a soldier, but she could see the battlefield with a clarity that surprised her. She moved with purpose, guiding the Zoraean troops to where they were needed most. Her heart surged as she realized what she was becoming, a part of this fight, this incredible struggle. Hours passed, and the tide began to turn. The Tarketh's command structure had been shattered. Their leadership faltered as the human forces pushed deeper into their stronghold. With each passing moment, the Tarketh began to crumble. It wasn't over yet, but victory was no longer just a dream. It was within their grasp. Lyriel stood tall, looking out across the battlefield. She knew the hardest part was still to come, but the humans had shown her something that day: the power of courage, unity, and the unbreakable human spirit. The battle for Zelvera was turning, and she knew now, without a doubt, that they would win. The final battle for Zelvera was upon them. The Tarketh forces had been weakened, their command structure shattered, but the fight was far from over. The humans and Zoraean had made tremendous progress, but the Tarketh were desperate. They would not go down without a fight, and they still had power, enough to make the final moments of this war a brutal and unpredictable challenge. Lyriel stood on the outskirts of the battlefield, her eyes scanning the chaos. The human ships, sleek and deadly, soared through the sky, their laser blasts lighting up the dark clouds above. Below, soldiers from both sides clashed in fierce combat, the sound of weapons firing and the roar of engines filling the air. The dust of war hung heavy, but amidst it all, the humans' determination shone through. Commander Kane had planned the final assault carefully. The goal was clear: the Tarketh had to be driven back completely. The Tarketh had fortified their last stronghold, an ancient military base built into the heart of a rocky mountain range. This was their final stand, their last chance to hold Zelvera. If the humans and Zoraean could destroy it, the Tarketh would have no choice but to retreat. The battle that ensued was unlike anything Lyriel had ever seen. The humans fought with a precision and speed that was both beautiful and terrifying. Their ships swooped down, attacking with pinpoint accuracy, targeting weak points in the Tarketh's defenses. On the ground, human soldiers moved like a well-oiled machine, working alongside the Zoraean forces to clear the way. Lyriel had never been so close to a battlefield before, and yet, as she watched the humans fight, she felt a sense of awe. They were not only fighting for Zelvera, they were fighting for each other. The human soldiers, though they had seen countless battles, never wavered. They shared a bond that went beyond orders and strategy. They were in this together, and it showed in every move they made. Lyriel felt her heart race as the battle drew closer to its climax. She had witnessed human warriors in the stories her grandmother told, but now, as she watched Commander Kane lead the charge, she understood that the stories were not just tales. They were truths. The humans were the warriors of old, and they were making their mark on Zelvera's history. The Tarketh, though powerful, were faltering. Their defenses were being breached, their ships destroyed, and their forces scattered. Liriel saw Commander Kane's ship at the front, leading the final push into the heart of the Tarkath stronghold. The battle reached a fever pitch as the humans and Zorin launched one last, coordinated strike. In that moment, Liriel realized the true meaning of the battle. It was not just about defeating the Tarkath. It was about something deeper. It was about standing up against oppression, against forces that sought to destroy and dominate. It was about reclaiming what was lost, and it was about proving that, no matter the odds, humanity would never give up. The explosion that followed was massive. The Tarkath stronghold erupted in a fiery blast, sending shockwaves across the land. The final remnants of the Tarkath forces crumbled in the wake of the explosion, and with it, the war came to an end. The humans had won. Liriel watched the humans and Zorin gather in the aftermath. The battlefield was silent, save for the occasional hum of distant engines. Commander Kane and his soldiers stood tall, their faces tired but victorious. They had achieved the impossible. They had defeated the Tarkath and saved Zelvera. As the smoke cleared, Liriel felt a deep sense of gratitude. The stories she had once thought were fairy tales were now a reality. The human warriors had come, and they had made history. Zelvera was free. And Liriel knew that, in the years to come, the story of the humans would be told again and again, not just as legends, but as the truth of what it meant to fight for what was right. The human warriors were no longer just stories. They were part of Zelvera's history, a history that would live on forever. The war was over. The Tarkath had been defeated, their forces scattered across the galaxy. Zelvera was free. The air felt lighter, the sky brighter, and for the first time in weeks, the Zorin could breathe without the weight of fear crushing them. The humans had done the impossible. They had not only helped the Zorin reclaim their world, but had taught them the value of courage, teamwork, and resilience. Commander Kane and his soldiers had shown the Zorin what it meant to stand up against tyranny and fight for a future worth living. As the days passed, Zelvera began to rebuild. The cities, once shattered by the Tarkath's assault, were slowly being restored. The Zorin worked tirelessly, using their advanced knowledge of technology and the guidance the humans had provided. Together, they were creating a new world, one that would never again fall prey to the same fate. Liriel watched the progress with awe. The planet was healing, but so was her people. She had learned so much from the humans, about strength, about hope, and about never giving up, no matter the odds. She could see it in the Zorin too. They were no longer just survivors. They were warriors in their own right, standing tall alongside the humans. One afternoon, as the sun dipped below the horizon, Liriel stood beside Commander Kane. They were overlooking the city, the glow of rebuilding fires casting long shadows over the streets. "How does it feel, Commander?" Liriel asked, her voice quiet but full of wonder. "To have won, to have saved our world." Kane stood still, his eyes on the horizon. "It feels like the start of something new," he said, his voice steady but thoughtful. "War is never easy, Liriel, but we fight because we believe in something greater than ourselves. You Zorin have a strength that goes beyond what you think." "You proved that." Liriel smiled, grateful for his words. She had always known that the Zorin were a peaceful people, but now she understood that peace didn't mean weakness. The Zorin had the courage to fight when they had to, and they had done so with the help of the humans. "I never imagined I would be part of something like this," she said, her voice full of emotion. "I used to think of human warriors as just stories, but now I know they are real. And because of you, we're free." Kane turned to her, his expression softening. "It's not just me, Liriel. It's all of us. We may have fought the battle, but it was your people's courage that made the difference. You believed when others didn't." Liriel nodded, a sense of pride swelling in her chest. She had believed, even when no one else did, and now it had paid off. The Zorin had fought alongside the humans, and together they had proven that no force in the universe could crush their spirit. As the days went by, the humans began preparing to leave. They had fulfilled their mission, but they had also left behind something far more valuable: knowledge, technology, and a bond that would never be broken. The Zerain were no longer alone. They had the strength to stand on their own, and they had allies they could rely on. Lyriel stood with the others as the human ships prepared to leave. Commander Kane walked up to her one last time. "We'll always be here if you need us," he said, giving her a small, reassuring smile. "But I think you've got this now." Lyriel looked up at the sky, watching the human ships disappear into the distance. She knew that the future was uncertain, but she also knew that with the lessons the humans had taught them, the Zerain could face anything. They were no longer just a peaceful species. They were protectors of their world, and they would never forget the warriors who had come to their aid when the world seemed lost. As the last of the human ships vanished from the sky, Lyriel turned to face the future. It was a new beginning for Zelvera, and with it came a new hope. The human warriors had proven that no matter the odds, humanity would always rise. And so, too, would the Zerain.